So, the First War is over. The Horde has smashed Stormwind to pieces. But what if that victory wasn't the end? What if it was just the fuse being lit for something way, way bigger? Today, we're going to break down the critical moments that set the stage for the Second War, the events that forged two of the most iconic factions in gaming history. Let's get into how that first victory was really just the calm before a much, much bigger storm.
Okay, so picture this. You've led your people through hell, you've won a brutal war, and you've finally secured a new home. But you're not safe. Not even close. In fact, you might be more vulnerable than you've ever been. This was the exact nail-biting problem facing the Horde right after they shattered the Kingdom of Stormwind. Winning the war was one thing, sure, but how do you win the peace? And maybe more importantly, how do you make sure your people actually get to live to see it?
Right after that big win, the new war chief, Orgrim Doomhammer, finds himself leading a horde that, yeah, they look tough on the outside, but really, they're hanging on by a thread. They'd won a huge battle, absolutely, but the war for their very existence on this new world, oh, that was just getting started.
I mean, just look at the pressure cooker Doomhammer was in. His army? Totally exhausted and battered. He desperately wants to get rid of the demonic fell magic that corrupted the Horde in the first place, but there's just no time. His scouts are coming back with terrifying news. To the north, there are several powerful human kingdoms, and Lord Iran is the biggest of them all. Doomhammer does the math, and it's grim. He knows they'll eventually team up and just steamroll his weakened forces. It all came down to one single brutal calculation. Their only shot at survival was to strike first.
But to launch a preemptive strike, Doomhammer needed a new edge, some kind of new weapon. And you know who was the only one who could give it to him? The one person who was the living symbol of all the corruption he hated, the treacherous warlock, Gul'dan, who had just conveniently woken up from a magical coma.
And this right here, this really lays out the whole messed up situation at the top of the Horde. You've got Orgrim, laser-focused on keeping his people alive, knowing he's got nothing that can stand up to the powerful mages of the north. And then you've got Gul'dan, this master manipulator, who only cares about his own power. Gul'dan is literally about to be executed, so in a last-ditch effort to save his own skin, he promises Orgrim a whole new breed of warrior. It's an alliance built on sand, you know, forged from pure desperation and lies, just waiting for the whole thing to fall apart.
So, what was this super weapon Gul'dan promised? Oh yeah, Death Knights. And let me tell you, these were not living soldiers. These things were straight-up horrifying abominations. Gul'dan took the souls of his own dead warlocks from the Shadow Council and magically shoved them into the dead bodies of human knights from the First War. The result? Tireless undead necromancers, an absolutely terrifying new weapon.
In the way they made them, it was just as grim as you can imagine. First, Gul'dan gathered up the corpses of human knights. He knew he couldn't use orc bodies without his own people rioting. Then, in a pretty dark move, he sacrificed his own followers, the necrolytes, to get the dark energy he needed. He used that energy to bind a warlock spirit, like Tarangor, into the dead body. And just like that, the first Death Knight, Taran Gorefield, was born. You can bet Orgrim was disgusted by them, but hey, he couldn't argue with the results.
Okay, so Orgrim's got his new magic weapon. Awesome. But what about the rest of the army? An army runs on steel, on siege engines, on fuel. And there was only one place to get all of that in the quantities they needed, the dwarven mountain kingdom of Cosmodon. The plan was, well, simple and absolutely brutal. See, the dwarves of Ironforge weren't just in the way. They were basically a giant walking armory. Their mountains held the exact metal and oil the Horde war machine needed for its invasion fleet and all its weapons. So before the Horde marched north to take on the humans, first they turned south. Look, the dwarves were fierce, no doubt about it. They were masters of their mountain home. But against the sheer, overwhelming green tide of the Horde, even their strongest forts and defenses just crumbled. Cosmodon's outer defenses were completely steamrolled. And here's the thing, Orgrim was smart. He didn't even need to take the capital city, Ironforge, itself. Nope. All he had to do was grab the resources around it. The Blackrock clan swarmed the dwarven mines and their great forges, and pretty soon the whole mountain range was just covered in smoke as they started cranking out weapons like there was no tomorrow. And just like that, mission accomplished. The dwarves and their gnome buddies, they were stuck inside their capital cities, totally helpless, while their own industrial power was being used against them. The Horde was now armed, it was supplied, and it was ready for the real fight up north.
But while the Horde was gearing up, you've got these terrified refugees pouring north, all with the same story. Khazmodon is gone. The Horde is on its way. And humanity? Well, humanity was next on the list. But getting them all on the same page? That was going to be a whole other battle.
To put it mildly, the Council of Seven Nations was an absolute mess. We're talking old grudges, political ego, it was bad. King Greymane of Gilneas and King Perinold of Alterac, they just flat out refused to commit their armies because they were afraid of losing power in their own kingdoms. I mean, the apocalypse is literally knocking at their door, and they're still squabbling over who's in charge.
The whole thing was about to fall apart until this one venerated priest, Turalian, had had enough. He stands up in front of all these bickering kings and basically just lays it on the line, shaming them into action. He warned them that their pride was going to get every single one of them killed, and history would never, ever let them forget it. And you know what? It actually worked.
So, with the alliance of Lord Aeron finally a real thing, they needed a leader. And to make sure nobody could cry foul about politics, they picked a total neutral hero, Sir Anduin Lothar, one of the last big names from Stormwind's nobility. Since he had no claim to any of the Northern thrones, everyone could respect his command. The alliance finally had its supreme commander.
Okay, so the Horde has its terrifying new weapon, the Death Knights. The Alliance knew they needed something to fight back with. I mean, their clerics were brave, sure, but they were healers, not frontline fighters, and they were getting wiped out way too easily on the battlefield. They needed a game changer.
And that game changer came from Archbishop Alonce's fall. His idea? Paladins. Think about it. Warriors with all the skill of a knight, but who could also call on the divine power of the Holy Light. They were designed to be both spiritual leaders and military powerhouses, living, breathing symbols of hope, the perfect counter to the Horde's necromantic darkness.
And these are the legends, the founding members of this new Order of the Silver Hand. You'll probably recognize a few names. Turalion, the guy who shamed the kings, he's one of them. Then you've got Uther, Tyrion Fordring, and Sadon Dathrohan from Lord Aeron, and Gavin Rad the Dire from Stormwind. Each one was chosen to represent a core virtue: protection, justice, retribution, becoming the paragons the Alliance desperately needed to rally behind.
So, this is it. This is where everything stands right before the war explodes. On one side, you have the Horde, armed to the teeth by the forges of Khazmodon, fielding undead Death Knights and sailing a massive fleet north to conquer a new home. And on the other, you have the Alliance, a shaky, brand-new coalition led by holy paladins, desperately trying to pull an army together to defend their entire world from being wiped out. The stage is set. Two massive armies, born from desperation and duty, are on a collision course for the fate of Azeroth.
And that really brings us to the big question here, doesn't it? The Horde sees this war as their only shot at survival, a necessary evil to secure a future for their people. The Alliance sees a monstrous invasion force hell-bent on destroying everything they've ever known. Both sides believe they're doing what's right. So the question isn't just who will win, but in a war this brutal, who truly deserves to?